Welcome to the I'm Book podcast. I'm April O'Leary, and this is the YouTube version of our podcast. To get the audio version, you can hop on over to Spotify or anywhere that you consume audio podcasts. We are going to jump into some really cool content, so stay tuned for our next guest. We look forward to connecting with you, and be sure to subscribe. And to start your author adventure, hop on over to o'learypublishing.com, where you can map out the entire process and see what writing a book would look like for you. Let's get started. Welcome to the I'm Book podcast. I am so thrilled that I have Tammy Gooler Loeb on today. She has agreed to join us. She's the author of Work from the Inside Out. Thank you so much for being on the show with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a treat to be here.
So Tammy has been an executive career coach for 20 years and has worked with some very interesting people along the way, helping them shift and change their careers and find things that really are passion projects for them or passion careers for them. But she's taken all of this knowledge and put it into a book. And so I want to talk to her about the writing process and how she decided that it was time to start sharing your wisdom with those who are looking to work from the inside out. So how did you get started on your writing journey?
Well, I think this book was inside of me for a long time. And I reached a point actually before the pandemic. I kind of put a stake in the ground and declared, I'm going to write this book. I had started my podcast in November 2018, started just talking to people about their career stories and realized that there were a lot of themes that were showing up in the stories that I was getting through the podcast, which is also called Work from the Inside Out. So the themes were popping up, and those were the same themes that I've uncovered working with clients all these years on their career transitions. And so I decided to pull some of the stories I got from the podcast, some of the stories that I also have learned about over the years, just from people I've known in my life, and realized that there were some themes that I thought would be very helpful to people who find themselves feeling stuck or trapped, either because they don't know where to go next, or they're feeling stuck in a career or a job that they're just not happy in. And I thought, I can really help them think this through. And, one of the things that I find with a lot of people is they have the skills, they have the ability to make the changes, but they often are afraid to take the steps, or they don't. And part of that fear is they're not really sure how to begin. And I knew that I could be helpful with that. So I thought if I could offer people real life stories of people who have done those things, that would at least serve as an example of what's possible. And so I came up with 9 common themes for the book, and then told stories of various people throughout the book through these 9 themes. And most of the themes have some underlying or underpinning of fear. Fear being a friend or a foe, I should say. In chapter 1, I talk about fear as a friend or a foe. Fear being can be your friend too, because sometimes when you're afraid of something, that's a clue that it's a way that you want to either stop and think about something. Sometimes fear can feel exciting. Maybe it's something you really want, or it's too good to be true kind of thought, right? But maybe it's not too good to be true. Maybe it's too good and you can actually have it. Or it can also be that fight or flight response where, it's sort of danger, danger. Maybe I need to step away from this. So, but I think we do that in our lives a lot. So I built from that, and then drew out some of the themes from there, and then told people stories that reflected those themes so that the reader can see what would be possible for them. Not to say that they have to go ahead and do things exactly the way people did them in these stories, but just as a starting point.
I love that you started with the end in mind, because it's something that we coach our readers to do, is, you understand that the reader is someone who's at an inflection point where
Mm-hmm.
they want to change or they don't
Mm-hmm.
know how. And that fear is really the thing that's holding them back. And then how you were able to think about the stories and resources that you had, not only from your coaching, but from your podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and then how you could logically lay it out into a book, into concepts that make sense. So that's something that we encourage our authors to do as well, is to think about, are things topical? Is it chronological? Is it based on lessons? Is there ways to
Mm-hmm.
group ideas in ways that are similar? And so to start with a roadmap makes writing a whole lot easier. And so
Mm-hmm.
once you decided on this process where you were going to focus on these 9 things,
Mm-hmm.
how did you begin to map out each chapter?
Mm. So one thing I did was I actually hired a writing coach. So somebody who has written several books and has worked with other authors, because I knew a couple of things about myself. I knew I could write. I knew I had the skills to write, but I also knew that if I was left to my own devices, I might not, I'm a busy person otherwise. I knew that I might not have the, I don't want to say the discipline, but let's say the focus to really move the process forward. And one of my goals in writing this book was to enjoy the process of writing the book, not just to get it done. So I was very committed to enjoying myself as a writer, as an author, not just let's get this book out. So I wanted the coach to help me figure out a good process for engaging with the process of writing and putting a book together. So she taught me, gave me some really good contextual prompts and a way of putting a blueprint together. And so I worked through that process with her, and that's how we developed the chapters and the themes. And I was able to then draw out different stories, because I think when I started the book, I had probably about maybe 100 episodes from the podcast, and I had some other stories. And in the book, I used 22 stories, so I had lots to choose from. And I had already written a lot of the stories, because every week when I interview somebody, I write up that person's story for the show notes. So I was already practiced at writing the stories. Now, writing them for the book was a little bit different, but I did have a little bit of a running start with that.
It's a great piece of advice to hire a writing coach or working with an outside party to give you that push that you need, to give you accountability, to help you build in the structure and give you the sounding board for this is working, or these are the themes we're aiming towards. That's a really smart way to work. And through the editorial process, we've had authors who come to us with what they consider a fully developed manuscript, and they're ready to be published.
Yeah.
And you read that first draft and you say, that's a really excellent first draft.
Yes.
So that process of being malleable and being willing to let someone else kind of help you steer the ideas and the ship is a very vulnerable process. And it requires that intellectual flexibility to let go of some things that aren't working and to invite ideas in that might be outside of what we had considered as writers. So during that process of working with your coach, what were some of the things that you learned about yourself as a writer?
Well, I definitely, I think I went into it with a pretty open mind in terms of that part of the process. I think one thing I recall, there was a couple of things. One was, at one point, my writing coach said to me, put the computer away and write one of the chapters by hand and see what comes out of you that way. So we just tried different things. And, my coach was not an expert in my field. So there were things that I knew. And so what was great about that was she could ask me all kinds of questions that got me thinking in new ways, because she had these questions from a kind of open-ended point of view, because she didn't know things about some of the terminology I was using. And so it got me to take a step back and realize I have to, I have to be mindful of who my readers will be, and not just use a lot of lingo and jargon. Now, I end up having to do that with my clients as well, but it did really, it kept me at a very conscious level as I went along. And so I was just really ready and open to just engage with the process first, rather than worrying about what will this look like when it's done. And really it definitely went through several drafts, and I just tried to stay present. I think that was, and I actually, the other thing I learned was, I learned that I knew that getting help was important. I learned even in more detail what kind of help I needed, because we started out meeting once a week. We then ended up breaking it up into 2 sessions a week, shorter sessions, because I found that I needed a touch point early in the week and the end of the week, so that I could really stay focused and on track, because I really did want to get the book done. It wasn't like I was totally open-ended. The thing had to get done at some point. But it was really helpful. I learned something about myself in terms of how I work well and what kinds of support I needed. And it made all the difference in the world. And so we met, not every week, but most weeks we met, Monday or Tuesday and Thursday or Friday. And we kept it to about maybe about a half hour each time. But it was enormously helpful.
That's so great. Learning how you best work is so important for a writer. I was speaking with one of our authors who's in the process of developing their book right now, and has kids that are home for summer, and the schedule got all discombobulated. And so I was talking about what pockets of time during the day would work for quiet. Like, I'm a morning person.
Yeah.
And so there's been times when I've been working on my own writing projects, and what makes the most sense for me would be getting up at 5 a.m. and writing from 5 to 6:30, and then you get it done before everyone else is up.
Right.
For this particular author, that was absolutely like, the kids are already getting up at 6 a.m.
Right.
So maybe I could do an evening pocket of time.
Yeah.
So to consider not only what outside help you need,
Right.
but also when in your schedule does it work to write. So
Right.
for you, did you find that you had slotted certain times in your calendar for writing?
Yes, I did. I slotted certain times. I didn't always stick with it, I will admit that, but this is part of why I needed the structure of knowing when I was going to be meeting with her, and by when I needed to get any of my draft material to her so that she could review it before we met. So I had those touch points. But I think that because me and structure are, if you could imagine me putting one finger at one end of the room and the other finger at the other end of the room, me and structure are like this. That's why I needed those touch points with her. I did schedule in writing time. I also, the other thing that I did that was really, really helpful, and this, I think, it wasn't so much, I did schedule in those times. Sometimes I used them, sometimes I didn't. The other thing, though, that I did schedule in was with a small group of colleagues. We had a time on Wednesday mornings that we called strategic blocks. Why we called it that, I don't know. But it was an hour and a half or 2 hours on Wednesday mornings. And we just all got on Zoom together, and we'd say, okay, what are you working on? Everyone had different things they were working on. It was a group of maybe 5 or 6 of us. Sometimes there'd only be 2 of us on there, sometimes all of us. And we'd spend 5 minutes just sharing what we're working on. And then we'd work for maybe 45, 50 minutes. Then we would take a break. Then we'd come back after a break and say, how you doing with what you're doing? Then we'd go back to work. And we'd just go on mute. Some people would even turn off their cameras, but we knew that the other people were there. And it was just another built-in structure. And it made all the difference in the world that I knew I had this appointment with these other people. So there's that relationship based thing, at least for me, that I knew that these other people had that in their schedule and I did too. And I was showing up as much for me as I was for them, that we're supporting one another in having this focused time to get something done. And it was
That's
interesting
a
to
great
hear what other
idea.
people are working
My
on.
brain is like exploding right now with the thought of like how I can use that, right?
Well,
Genius.
actually, simultaneously, as I was working on my book, I also started a public speaking program, Heroic Public Speaking. And one of we had a writing coach because we learned how to write speeches. So that was actually, I was almost done working on the book when I started the speaking program, and we learned how to write. I learned how to write a keynote speech, and they had a fabulous writing coach there, AJ Harper, who just came out with a fabulous book. I will plug her new book. I can't remember what it's called. I don't have it right in front of me, but AJ Harper.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Oh, please do. I can't say enough great things about AJ Harper. Anyway, she would, I think, I'm not sure if it was part of Heroic Public Speaking. I think she sponsors these things as part of her own business, but she hosts these every once in a while on a Saturday. She will host a day-long, like, writing sprint. And she gets on Zoom, and there could be 30, 40 people on it. And I sometimes join those, and it's really fun. She gives out prizes, and, she has other paying clients who show up to these things, but then she invites other people to come. And so we'll maybe spend an hour or so writing, and then there'll be a break, and she'll even answer people's questions about publishing and about writing and all kinds of things. And, it's great for her business. She's an amazing resource, but it's really fun. And it's fun. You get to hear what other people are working on. You feel less isolated, but it also gives you that focused time. It's great to be part of a community,
I love the idea. So
yeah.
I want to talk about how your book has helped you with your own professional career, because both are really cohesively one shaking the hand of the other. And with our authors, this is sometimes the case as well, where they have their expertise. I'm thinking of one of our authors in particular, Dr. Paul Arciero. He's a nutrition scientist. He works at Skidmore College, and he does a lot of human research studies on the value of protein pacing and the scientific benefits. So he was able to take some of these journals that he had published in more higher level nutrition outlets that normal people would never read and boil it down into a book that was consumable for the average person.
Right.
And so for you, with having your book work from the inside out, being very much story driven, helping people understand about how to navigate the fear of a career change and how to find something that means more to them. How has that helped you with your own business? And especially even talking about speaking and some of the opportunities you've had there as well.
Well, having a book published definitely adds credibility to your professional reputation. I mean, there's no doubt about it that I've noticed a real shift and change in terms of how I'm being approached. People are finding me in ways they weren't finding me before. I can't say exactly where they're finding me or how they're finding me, but they are. I am definitely doing some pushes to be a guest on podcasts, and I'm also doing a lot of webinars and talks about the book. So that's, of course, helping. I'm trying to create visibility. And again, or I should say, I didn't say this before, but this is not about me. This is about me getting the word out about the value that I think the book offers. And so I think the more I offer what the book has to offer, I hope the word gets out further and further. That will prompt people to either invite me to speak, or whether it's in a webinar or in a live speech, or it'll draw clients my way. I'm also in the process of planning to develop an online course that people could then access, probably at a more, modest price point versus, one-on-one coaching or more private services. So I'm trying to expand my reach to reach more people so that more people can benefit from what I believe I have to offer them. The other thing that I've been, that has come out of the book is at the end of each chapter, there are reflective questions and guiding activities that people can do. So I don't just say, here's what other people did, figure it out for yourself.
Right.
It's more like, here's some good prompts and things that you can think about doing to start stepping into some of this yourself. I took all of those questions and activities and compiled them into a workbook, and then I expanded on them and created a bonus workbook, which I'd be happy to offer to your audience if they'd like.
Amazing.
And
Thank you.
I will give you the link for that, and we can offer that in the show notes. And that's something that I think also adds both value, it obviously adds value to my credibility, but it offers value to people. So I think the more I just offer good value out there to people, it's going to, of course, help my business. And that's what it's all about. I just want to help people enjoy their work and live the lives they were meant to live, because there's a lot of people out there, and there's tons of research that shows this. There are a lot of people out there who are going to work every day, whether they're going somewhere to work or working from home, and they're just dialing it in. They're okay with their work, or they actually don't like their boss or their company or the work they're doing, and they're doing it for years, and they're just biding their time till they retire. And I would say, don't do that. You have more to offer yourself and others. Don't do that.
So to dovetail on what you said earlier, and we didn't get on this podcast, so I can give Tammy a plug for her work, but I will say that, smart people work with other people. And so in the process of writing a book, you worked with a writing coach because you knew that writing coach had skills and expertise that would get you somewhere that you couldn't go alone. Right. And so in your work as an executive coach and helping people shift and find careers they're passionate about, I know from experience in meeting lots of people and having been a life coach in my prior career that there is that fear that keeps you from taking the move to even talk to a coach or think about shifting, because it's like, how am I going to pay my bills? I already make a great income. My degree is in this. I've already done this for 20 years. Right. And so how can somebody sort of shift that fear, maybe put it in a box to the side and take the first step to reach out and say, maybe there is a way I could do something different? Would it be, what would be their first steps in that process?
Great question, because those first ask the question, what are my first steps? So nobody's telling you to pick up, leave your job or whatever you're doing for income and throw all caution to the wind. I am not doing that. And I'm not even suggesting, to be honest with you, that you throw it all out the window to go find a dream job. I'm saying just find something you even like a lot. Find something that's going to make you feel really great on Sunday night and even better on Monday morning. So chances are that you need more information. You don't have the information you need to make the decisions you need to make about this. So your first step or set of steps is to get more information. You clearly don't have everything you need to know about what you would like to do, even if you think you do. You've probably come to a whole bunch of conclusions or assumptions about whatever it is that you think you might like to do, and you think it won't give you what you need or want. Or you have a big question mark hovering over your head and you're saying, I don't know, I don't know. Great, you don't know. There's the door that's opening up and saying, then get more information. And there's lots and lots of ways to get more information. So for example, guess what? In the back of my book, I have a whole robust resources section. So, you can even get my book in the public library if you want to. You don't have to even buy it. Go to your public library and request that they purchase my book. They can get access to it that way. Tons of resources. There are lots of ways to learn what you need to learn about what you might want. My only recommendation to people is don't do it completely alone. There are lots and lots of ways to get the information you need. And, whether you start talking to different people, learning more about yourself. It's not just about learning what's outside of you, like what is, in another place, but also figuring out some things about yourself. That's why, getting this link for the workbook is a great starting place as well, because it'll help you get started in terms of thinking about who are you, what matters most to you, what do you like? Because a lot of times what people end up doing in their careers is they go after something that they're good at. All my life, everyone told me I was good at this and good at that, so I became a thus and such. And that's fine if you enjoy it. But sometimes you reach a certain point in your life where you say, well, I'm really good at this. I'm making a great living. I'm taking care of the people that matter to me. But I feel trapped. I'm really not happy. And yet everyone else around me is really happy and they're really pleased with what I've been able to do for them. So I'm just going to stay put till whenever. That's not good enough, at least in my opinion. Yes. So you deserve to be happy too. So don't just do what you're good at. This is one of the chapters in the book. Do something that you enjoy. It doesn't even have to be something you love. It could be something that you just enjoy. You'd probably be good at it too.
It takes the pressure off, because if you're trying to aim for the very center of some bullseye that's, invisible, it will prevent you from trying to get somewhere in the scope of where we might be a little bit happier.
Right.
And I love that you shared that it doesn't mean throw all caution to the wind and close your shop and try something new.
Right.
There are steps you can take to gain more information. And that's why I love the title of your book, because to me it says working from the inside out is about figuring out who you are.
That's right.
And then taking steps.
That's right.
We've all heard of people who have made geographical cures, where I'm not happy here. I live in Naples, Florida. I'm not happy here. So I'm going to move there.
Right.
And I'm going to be happier there. And then it's like, wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah, exactly. The grass is not greener over there. Guess what? But sometimes we have to make the move to figure that out. Right.
Yes.
You always learn something, even if it doesn't work out, you learn something from that.
That's definitely true. So I will put the link to that workbook in the show notes as well. I really appreciate your time to be on the podcast today. I think what you offer is so much value in such an important area of life that takes up so much of our time, which is work. If we're spending the majority of our time doing something we don't enjoy, how can we change that? And we have shown that there is a way to do it where you're not throwing all caution to the wind.
Nope.
You don't have to make a move to another country, but you can learn about yourself and get more information, work with a coach, reach out to Tammy. I'll have her link in the show notes as well, and take at least some of those steps to getting more information. Writing a book about your expertise, I think, is such a crucial way to give people a first step.
Yeah.
They can experience who you are. And that's the power of a book, I believe, is that it gives us the opportunity to really connect with somebody, maybe before we pick up the phone or maybe before we schedule a consultation. We can get that value and see, do I like what this person has to say? Do I feel like they're credible? And then the book speaks on your behalf. And so I can tell that the book has certainly done that for you and has shown your expertise in a way that is going to help many people make shifts in their life that are positive, life fulfilling and enhancing, and bring better value. I think when you work in a way that you enjoy it, you also bring more to the
Mm,
world as well. So
I
any
agree.
final words for our listeners today that you'd like to share about encouraging them to write or to make that step to career changes?
Well, I think, whether you're writing or finding a way to express who you are in the world or the value that you bring to the world, there's lots of ways to do that. I think books are amazing. And now we have so many options for putting that out into the world, whether it's a physical book or an audiobook. I'm going to do an audiobook with this. I haven't done it yet, but there's so much, think about when you get lost in a book or you've read something that just stays with you and you carry that with you throughout your life. So many of those things are treasures. And I think that there's a way in which I just want to encourage people either to find that part of yourself that either wants to take a deep dive into a book to move your life forward or to create something yourself that you can contribute, whether it's for your own use or for your family or your community or even the larger world, and it doesn't even have to be about you. It could be something that you want to make sure just is, a lasting legacy.
I think those are wise words from someone who has a lot of experience helping herself and others to find more fulfillment in life. So it's been great. I love the opportunity to speak with people on podcasts and share new perspectives on writing and different topics. And today's episode has been just very life enriching for me. I've enjoyed meeting you and feeling as though I have a new friend out there in the cyber world.
Absolutely, April. Thank you.
And I look forward to sharing you with my audience and my authors. And I encourage everyone listening here to pick up her book, Work from the Inside Out. You can get your copy on Amazon. You can get it on Kindle. And is it available on your website as well?
It's available through my website, Barnes and Noble, independent bookstores, local libraries, wherever you want to get it, other countries, everywhere.
Perfect. So anywhere in the world, you have no excuse to taking the
No
first
excuses.
step. So thank you for being here today, and stay tuned for the end of this episode. So this has been another episode of the iBook Podcast. I'm April O'Leary signing off. Be sure to hop on over to o'learypublishing.com to start your author adventure and see what writing a book could do for you in your profession, in your career, and what doors it might open. We thank our guests for being a part of the show today, and be sure to subscribe to podcasts here on YouTube. We look forward to serving you and helping you get your book out into the world.